Hi there and welcome to Code Coach. Today we're going to start a series on test-driven development or TDD. You might have heard of TDD and wondered what it was all about. Well, in this series I will reveal it all. Just going to start slowly. So first, this is what we'll be doing today. Test-driven development, TDD. What is it? Test-driven development is a software development technique that repeats a short development cycle. One, we start out with requirements that are converted into a unit test, and then we write code to make the test pass. And then finally, we go back to one. Look at the next requirements, convert those into a unit test. Cool. Let's move on. How does TDD compare to traditional development and other development techniques? With regards to traditional development, there are certain advantages. The way we normally develop, which is not to write any unit tests at all, but to just kind of jump in and write the code, it does seem to feel right. This seems to be the way it should be done. Developers have been developing code like this for 50 years, and it's got a fair degree of history behind it. There are a lot of disadvantages as well. We tend to make the code overly complex. So any kind of algorithms that we dream up, they tend to be too complex for what we really need in order to solve the particular problem. This over a long time will lead to quite messy code that is difficult to maintain. It is fragile, it is rigid, which means it can't be changed. Fragile means that it breaks easily. When you make a little change, additional bugs are being generated. There is no verification step either. We can't check really quickly whether all our code is meant to work the way the code is meant to run. No verification step, and that's not good. Test after development. So this is the same as traditional development, so in air quotes, this is test after development. Here we have got the advantages that are being brought forth by traditional development. So it still feels right. We now have validation because we have written unit tests at the end of our development, and the disadvantages are that we still end up with overly complex code. We still end up with messy code. Even the tests themselves, because we had messy, difficult code to start with, overly complex code, the tests tend to be more complex than they need to be as well. There's also a degree to which tests feel like make work. The code is already running, it's already running how we want it to run. And now we have to write these unit tests at the end. It feels like make work. It also feels like the tests are optional. So when we're under time pressure, well, what's the first thing that we'll dump? It's the unit tests. The unit tests will be dumped first. And if it's not developers mandating it, it might well be management or our project manager, product owner says, look, can you guys please, even though they're not meant to do that as a product owner, but it still happens. Hey, can you please dump the unit test so we can fulfill our deadline? That is not good. Let's move on. Test before development. So this is test-driven development, TDD. Here we write our unit tests before we do the actual development. It's quite revolutionary, even though it's been around for a while. It is taking the industry by storm, right? So more and more developers are moving into this way of writing code, even though there's still a lot of developers writing code the traditional way. Advantages are, so let's look at those. We have got minimal complexity. We get quite clean code. When we write the unit tests little by little, and then we write the implementation code, I'm still surprised how often the algorithm, how much simpler it is than I thought it was going to be. Okay. And we end up with validation baked into our code because we write the unit test that extends the functionality just a little bit, and then we write the code. It ends up being great validation and minimal complexity, just the necessary complexity. With regards to disadvantages, it feels quite counterintuitive, especially at the beginning. Productivity can be low for a month or two or even 3, and when I say low, I mean like 10 or 20% for at least 1, 2, 3 weeks until you sort of find your feet, and then we'll slowly creep up to move up to where you were before. But the In my humble opinion, the advantages outweigh the disadvantages because you end up with so much cleaner code, so many fewer bugs, constant validation. The validation is easy to read, as you will see once we get going in this particular series. Yes, so I recommend TDD. That's it from me, Code Coach. Hopefully, I'll see you at the next installment of test driven development. Thank you. Bye bye.